Anthropic's MCP is really a game changer. And in this quick video, we are going to learn how we can create custom MCP server for our own use case and use it with Claude Desktop application. So without wasting any further time, let's go to the screen and try and create a custom MCP server for a real life use case that I will probably use from now onwards using Claude. So now I'm in my screen. The first thing that we need is we need to check if we have Python installed. So I have the Python, and we also need, I think, the UV installed. And fortunately, I also have UV installed. But if you do not have UV installed, all you need to do is just quickly run, if you're on Mac, just run brew install UV. Let's first actually clone one of the existing example that Anthropic have given. Now, one of the idea that I had was to use the Google Map API to, for example, create an itinerary for let's say my next trip. So let's try and use one of the servers that they have already created and shared for us. So for that, what we will do first is just git clone this repository. This is an Anthropic provided repository called Model Context Protocol servers. So if you go to the servers, you will see a bunch of servers there basically for Google Drive, for GitHub, for Google Maps, memory, Postgres, and everything else. Now, if you run the UVX create MCP server using UV, that is basically going to create the MCP server in Python. You can also create MCP servers using TypeScript if you're more familiar with those type of language rather than Python. Now, the custom server we will create, of course, we'll use Python because it's easy to understand. But for this instance, the Google Maps one, you can see it's an TypeScript server. And this is what we will use for this particular example. And then we'll create the custom one. Now, the code is very simple to understand, and it's not really a massive difference than OpenAI's agent tools used to work, right? So the basic thing is what they have done. Let's say in this example for Google Maps, they have created a bunch of tools. The tools are basically like the OpenAPI specification, where it says what this tool does, what is the name of the tool, and to call the tool, what exactly needs to be provided as an arguments, right? So for example, if you want to convert an address into geographic coordinates, then the AI model or LLM has to provide the address to geocode. Or for example, if you want to reverse geocode, you have to provide, the model have to provide the latitude and longitude coordinate. Similarly, if they want to search places, then it has to provide the search query. As simple as that, right? Now, for each tool, you have this name. Now, when you search with this name, you will see that these are basically a switch case style programming. So they have a set request handler method, and as part of that method, when there is a call is coming, and if there is a tool call made by LLM with maps geocode, then what it is doing is it's basically calling this method, which is handle geocode. It's basically calling the map API with the Google Maps API key, and then it's basically going to just get the geocode back. So it's very simple to understand. I'm gonna place the link of all these servers from Anthropic in the video. I'm sure you would have already seen it, but this is all cool. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm quickly going to go to my Google account and create an API key, and hopefully we'll be able to use that Maps API key and try to do something really interesting. Now let me open my Google Console server. So here I am opening the Google Cloud Console, and then I'm gonna go into the Maps project that I already had previously, because this Maps project, if I go into the API and enabled API and services, we should be able to see the Maps API is enabled for this. So I have the Maps JavaScript API enabled for this. You can actually add more APIs if you want, just by clicking enable API and services, and you can add any of the other APIs that you want. Okay, so in case I have already got the map API, so all I will do, I'll just go there into the credential screen, and I'm just gonna create an API key, and I got the API key. Don't worry, I'm gonna delete the API key anyways. I'm gonna just rename this, so MCP Maps API. You can actually restrict the API key to a specific API as well, like this many APIs enabled, of course, right? So you can specifically say this is only for Google Map API, but I'm gonna anyway delete it, so I'm just gonna say don't restrict the key. But for your case, if you're going to use it for a specific use case or applications, please make sure that you lock it down to a specific API key so that it doesn't get, any application. So the next that what we have to do is, because we are in map, what we have to do is we have to go to users, and then of course your username, library, application, support, Claude, and this is where we need to create a JSON file basically. So we'll just create the JSON file as Claude desktop config.json, and all we need to do is basically just paste this particular JSON which says how to run your server Google Maps this thing. So this will basically run this Google Map server, and then it will provide your API key. Now it's not actually taking the index.ps we have cloned, right? It's just downloading directly from this path. It is installed and it's available through the registry, but I just cloned this to show you how the code looks like and how the things actually works under the hood, so that we can create our custom server at the next. Now I'm just gonna go again, do like, and I'm just gonna come here and I'm just gonna give the API key that we have just created, which is this one, right? And then just save it, and all we need to do as next is just restart our Cloudy application. So at the moment you see there is no app installed or there is no MCP tool available. So if I just quit, rerun it, now if you see there are 7 MCP tools installed as it says, because the Google Map code have this many tools that is already there. Now let's do one thing. We can now say, hey, can you please create me a 6-day road trip? So all I'm just gonna ask, hey, can you please create me a 6-day road trip itinerary starting from Germany, covering interesting places in Austria and Dolomites in Italy. It's a winter trip and I don't know skiing, so create me the day-wise maps which I can use for the journey and also find some interesting places in the itinerary. So let's hope this will work and this will use all the tools. So let's see. So now it's asking me if I can use this one. So it's just, I said yes. It is just doing all these queries using the Maps API. The only thing that is good and bad, I would say, is that for every API call, it's gonna ask you or your permissions, and then it's gonna create the winter trip itinerary for you. And there you go. It has now created the itinerary from Munich to Salzburg, and what should I do, where should I visit, and then Salzburg to Hallstatt, then Hallstatt to Bad Gastein. Okay, so I think the itinerary that I was actually creating, I can see it has covered much of the places that I wanted to visit. So I'm just going to ask it to create the day-wise maps URL so that I can use directly in my mobile app. Let's see if it can do that or not. So it has started creating the map URL. So I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to put it here just to see whether it is created properly or not. So it's created the Munich to Salzburg, but I think what it is not doing is it's not adding the interesting places. So I'm just gonna still again ask, can you please make sure to add the stop points and the interesting points in the maps for day-wise URLs. Now I'm sure we could have just asked this in a properly better way at the start of the messages, but that's fine. We're just still exploring. So I hope this will now add all the attraction point for me. Yep, as you can see now, it has now added all of the places that I need to visit, and it has added it into the map URL. So that's really nice. So I think now we can use this MCP to do so many stuff, which is really, really awesome. Now let's go back and create our own tool and see how easy it is to create another tool and then use it basically. And now of course we'll use UVX as I said, but if you want to create it with NPX or Node.js, please feel free to do so as well. Cool. So the next step is we are going to create our custom MCP server, and this time we will test the Google Calendar integration. So I'll try to set up the calendar so that I can have my meeting schedules and everything checked using Cloude. So let's try that, because I've already shown you the example with the Node.js based servers. I think it's better to just show you how to use the Python based servers. So all you have to do is just write uvx create MCP server, and if you just hit enter, it will ask you the project name. I'm just gonna specify the project name as test call. A project description: this server helps me get and set meeting appointment in my calendar. That's fine. Is this correct? Project will be created there. Cool. Yes. Then it's created the project here. Basically, that's good. Now if you see, we should have the test cal server here. We will need to go to this particular location. So we'll open the test cal server, and then we are going to set it up. So there we go. So this is our test cal server that is created using UVX, as you can see. Now the interesting thing is it already created the project structure for you. So all we have to do is just change the server.py and add our own code, which will actually connect with the Google Calendar and then set up the meeting for me or get all the meetings from me. So there you go. That's the code basically. So what we are doing with here, we are using the Google OAuth 2 credentials because we need OAuth 2 credential, not API in this case, because we need to connect to calendar, and in order to connect to calendar, you need to use a specific account, right? So that is why you need OAuth 2 client. We are using the OAuth 2 API, and this is the scope basically to get access to the calendar of a specific user, which will be, of course, in my case, this would be my calendar. And just like the same tool that I have shown you for Google Map, here also we have list tools, and in the list tool we have listed few of the tools or few of the tasks that Anthropic will do for me, like the create event task, which will create a new calendar event. It will search events. If I say, hey, what's my day-to-day meeting look like for today, it should be able to search. And then to search, it needs to specify the time max and time minimum in ISO 8601 format. So all these are all set, and these are the basically stuff. This tool description is going to be read by Anthropic, and then when it will call this particular tool, this will actually in turn call the specific functions that I have written in the down. So basically, if I'm saying if the name is create event, if that create event is being called, which is this one, then what it is doing is it's basically fetching all the arguments that's coming with the create event call, and then using these arguments is basically going to create the calendar events for me. Similarly, if the event is search event, it's going to do the same thing. And then we have the main method where we are basically initiating the server. I'm gonna give you all this code to you so that you can just use it if you want to use it for your own calendar meetings. So use the link in the description and just download it. It will be absolutely free. Now what we need to do in order to run this, so we just need to go to the terminal, and the only command I think we have to run is this uv sync dev all extra access. This will actually build your project and it will make it ready. So all the dependencies and everything will be built. Now in case you are building a tool and you want to publish it for people to use, you can do uv like build, and that will build the entire project as a distribution, and you can basically do up publish, and that should go to the Python repository basically, where anyone can use your resources. I'm not going to do that. Instead, going to give you the code, and if you want to make some adjustment, because I haven't added all the other type of events, like you could do delete, you could do update as well with the calendar events, right? So I haven't added all those functions. So if you want to add, just look through the code and just update it, or take help from Cloud itself, and it should be able to do that. In fact, I used Cloud to create the code myself. Now, what we need to do, next step, just like before, we have to go back to the Cloud folder, which is the application support Cloud folder. And then we are going to open the nano cloud desktop config.json, because this is where we have to list all our MCP servers, right? When you have created the MCP server, what it basically does is it automatically add the particular tool to this config.json already for you. So you don't have to manually add it. But I have to add something extra here as a separate tool if I want to use the calendar utility. Because let's say with the calendar utility, what I'll do, I'll just say, hey, what is in my today's calendar, right? So what is today? Cloud wouldn't know what is today, right? So for to let Claude know what date is today and what date is tomorrow, what time it is now, we need to add another tool. Fortunately, the server list that I have shown you before already come with a time tool. So we just need to add the time tool as well, so that it is able to know the timing context to use the calendar properly. And for that, what we'll do, we'll just do like nano, and then we'll go inside the MCP servers, and all we will do is you see here test cal, we just do like comma, and then just add the server here. Let me fix the indentation as well. I think the indentation looks okay. So this is basically the time tool. Again, it's use UVX, and this is the server that it will download from its own repository that I have just shown you. That's it. We are almost done. Just to check whether everything is all right. Yeah, it looks okay for now. Now, the next thing that we also need to do is we need a Google credentials. As I said, we need to create an walkthrough app. So we need to create a Google credentials, which will be used by this particular server.py or this particular code to connect to my Google Calendar, right? So for that, we'll again go back to my console.cloud.google. And this time, instead of creating the API key, we will create a credential and we'll create an OAuth to client ID. But make sure you use the desktop app in this case, because we are going to use the Claude Desktop app as a client, right? So do not use web client. Let's name it something like MCP Claude app. Doesn't matter, you can give any name and just click create. And once you create it, you will get this particular client ID and secret. Again, I'm going to delete it, so don't worry about it. It's been plain text, and we'll just download it. Now what we will do, we'll go back here and we will just move that file to here. So that will be from download. What was the name? Stars client secrets, and we move it here as what was the name that the server.py is looking for? We just need to check quickly. I think it is credentials.json. So this is the file that it will look for. So we'll just rename it to credentials.json. So we have the credentials ready. We have the project ready, and I just hope that this will work. I just need to run the UV sync once again, just to make sure that it syncs up after the credentials. And that's it. Let's now go back and start our Claude server and test this tool. Start the Claude and see whether it is able to load the tool. Now we can see it has loaded the map and the time, but I don't see it has loaded our calendar tool yet. So there must be some error. It could be because of the UV log file. So I'm delete the log file. Then I'm going to just rerun the sync command once again. Yeah, now it's all loaded, and hopefully this time if I restart it, it should be able to pick up. So now let's try to start the Claude again. Yep, I can see now it has loaded the tools. I think it was to do with the TOML file. So I have missed to update the dependencies in the TOML file. This is something you need to do when you're working with the Py projects or Python projects, because you do not have a requirement of txt here, right? So the way UV works is it will read the TOML file and then it will basically download all the required modules and everything. So that's why I had to do. And after that, it basically worked. And I can now see that I have got 11 tools. We have the times and we have the create events, that is part, or that is coming from the custom tool that we have created. And we also have the search event and everything. This is good. Now it's time to test it. So we'll just say, can you please find my meetings for today? Now it's asking that this want to execute test cal, which we have created. Just say allow. Now the authentication have triggered, of course, because we have created the OAuth to client. So just have to authenticate with it. And now it says you have 2 meetings for today, test event and MCP live. This is what I've just created before testing. So we can just go to the calendar and you will see that we have created 2 test event. That's great. We can ask create another MCP live event at 4 p.m. today. When it's asking for this, there you go. It has now created the MCP live event for me. And let's go back to the calendar and you can see that MCP live event is created. So that means now I can use Claude to manage my meetings or manage my day and everything, which is really, really fun. Now with the MCP protocol, you can do so many things, apparently, as you can see, because you are able to now add your local tools or your local resources and everything. Although it feels almost similar to the ChatGPT tools, but MCP actually gives you some more granular level control to share your resources. And that is actually better than, I would say, the OpenAI's custom tool. But yeah, from the architecture point of view, I don't see it very different than how the OpenAI have launched their tool. I think what Cloud is trying to do is trying to create a standard that should be used by all the other providers. Only time will tell whether the other provider will use such kind of open standard or not. I think this is really a great step forward to have some kind of open standard that should be used by all the other AI utilities and tools, so that we can really have some path forward when it comes to using custom tools and designing custom agents. So that's all for today for this video. If you have any questions, doubt, please let me know. And please make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you have learned something, again, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're looking to launch your own voice AI SaaS application, make sure to use the link from the description below and grab the 50% offer that I'm providing on the course, because the course is now getting really interesting. And actually, I'm building the production SaaS, which or for which the experience I'm going to share you in the course. So with that said, I'm going to end the video. Please take care, and I'll see you on to the next one.